The Terran science vessel Aurora had been circling the misty planet of Varan 4 for several days. Its hull reflected the pale light of a distant star as the crew conducted surface scans and collected atmospheric samples. The planet had been largely ignored for centuries because of its dense forests and erratic weather patterns. However, recent reports of unusual energy signatures had drawn the attention of the Terran Exploration Corps' Eli Grant. The ship's quiet engineer spent most of his time in the cargo bays, repairing equipment, running diagnostics, and keeping the engines stable. He was not the type to rush into danger, but he had an insatiable curiosity about the unknown. The first time he glimpsed the forests of Varan 4 through the observation window, he felt a strange sense of anticipation. The mist clung to the trees like silver veils, and the distant hum of wildlife resonated through the atmosphere. It was a world alive with secrets. The crew's first expedition team landed near a cluster of towering crystalline trees, their trunks transparent and glittering under the weak sunlight. The team had planned to collect soil and plant samples, not expecting intelligent life. Yet, from the corner of Eli's eye, he noticed movement that didn't belong to the ordinary forest animals. Something nimble, golden-furred, and with large, intelligent eyes darted between the trees. It wasn't a creature. It was a being humanoid yet distinctly vulpine. Their faces were delicate and expressive, with soft muzzles and pointed ears that twitched with curiosity. Their movements were graceful, almost like dancing shadows. Eli's heart raced as he realized the significance. Contact with a sentient alien species was rare, and these Vulpines were intelligent. He wanted to observe them carefully, without frightening them. The first encounter happened when Eli wandered slightly away from the landing site to examine the soil near a sparkling stream. A small figure leapt silently from behind a tree and landed on all fours, then froze in place. It was a young Vulpine girl, golden fur glinting under the filtered light. Her large amber eyes studied him with equal parts fear and curiosity. Eli raised his hands slowly, showing he meant no harm. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said gently. His voice had always been calm, soothing, and there was something about it that even he didn't understand. Humans were noisy, commanding, but he never sounded that way unless he wanted to make peace. The girl's tail flicked nervously. She stepped back, but her gaze never left him. She spoke softly in a language Eli didn't know. Yet somehow he could feel her words carried meaning beyond sound, an urgent caution, a protective warning. He did not respond verbally, knowing any sudden noise might scare her away. Instead, he slowly reached into his bag and produced a small food packet. The packet contained some dried fruits and a neutral protein geltha kind. The crew often carried on explorations. The girl tilted her head, sniffing the air. Her ears twitched. Then, almost defiantly, she dropped to the ground and darted behind a tree. A small hiss escaped her lips. Eli chuckled softly. He could not force contact. Patience was his only ally here. Over the next few days, Eli tried to make contact in small, careful ways. He left small food portions at the edge of the forest, placed tools and gadgets in clear sight, and avoided direct staring. He did not want to scare her, but he hoped she would understand that he was not a threat. It was on the third day that the breakthrough happened. Eli had set up a small work area under the canopy near a crystalline tree. He was assembling a lightweight scanner to record forest vibrations when he felt eyes on him. He looked up slowly. There she was, again the golden-furred girl. She was crouched behind a large root, observing him with wary interest. "I see you're still watching," Eli said softly, not expecting a response. The Vulpine girl's ears twitched, but she did not run. Slowly, she stepped into the light, her movements fluid and cautious. Eli did not move. He waited. Then she spoke, her words soft but firm. "I'm not your pet," Eli smiled faintly. "I know," he said gently. "I'm not here to make you one. I just want to understand." She blinked at him, suspicious but curious. Something in her posture shifted. Instead of running, she sat down, tail curling around her legs. It was a small gesture of trust, though she would not admit it. Eli felt a strange warmth in his chest. Trust from an alien species was rare and fragile. Over the next hours, Eli worked quietly while she watched. He repaired a broken environmental sensor and calibrated a scanner that pulsed light through the trees. Occasionally, she would tilt her head, sniff the air, and make soft chirping noises. Eli began to feel a connection forming, one that did not rely on words. One night, after a long day of exploration, the temperature dropped. The forest mist became dense, and a faint wind rustled the crystalline trees. Eli noticed her shivering near the edge of the camp. He placed a small blanket on the ground, expecting her to ignore it. Instead, she stepped forward, hesitated, then crouched close beside him. "I told you, I'm not your pet," she murmured, trying to sound stern. Yet the quiver in her voice betrayed her discomfort in the cold. Eli said nothing, only offered a hand to help her adjust the blanket. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, she rested her head near his shoulder, pressing against him lightly. Eli froze for a moment, unsure if he should move or stay still. Then he realized she was not submitting. She was choosing to trust. The difference was subtle, but important. It was not dominance, nor was it ownership. It was mutual reliance. As the days passed, their bond grew. Eli learned that her name was Lyra. He discovered small details about Vulpine life, the way they could sense emotions through subtle vibrations. The intricate markings on their fur that indicated age and status, the silent ways they communicated with one another. He observed her teaching smaller Vulpines to climb crystalline trees, to balance along glimmering branches. Yet not all humans on Aurora understood Eli's approach. Captain Thorne, a strict and by-the-book officer, wanted to classify the Vulpines immediately. "They are intelligent, yes, but their biology is rare," he said. "We will need samples, and observation requires containment." Eli's stomach tightened. Containment meant cages, scanners, probes, things that would frighten and possibly harm the Vulpines. Lyra had made it clear she would never submit to such treatment. One afternoon, while Eli was repairing a communication relay, he noticed Lyra approaching from the tree line. She moved cautiously, ears flat against her head. She did not speak, but gestured for him to follow. Curiosity and concern made him obey. She led him to a small clearing, where the forest glowed faintly from bioluminescent moss. There, he saw her peopled dozens of Vulpines, young and old, moving gracefully among the crystal trunks. They noticed Eli, and their eyes narrowed, but none attacked. Lyra stepped forward, standing between him and her kin. "They are watching you," she whispered. "You cannot hurt them, or I will not forgive it." Eli knelt slowly, showing respect. "I want to help them," he said. "I will not let humans harm you." She sniffed the air, uncertain. Trust was fragile, easily broken. Yet something in his steady eyes convinced her to take a small step forward. She circled him once, sniffing cautiously, then touched his hand lightly with her paw-like fingers. That night, as the forest slept under the glow of twin moons, Lyra sat beside Eli again. She protested softly, "I'm not your pet," yet her body pressed against his side, seeking warmth and comfort. Eli did not speak. He simply let her settle there, understanding that words were unnecessary. For the first time, he realized something profound. Trust and connection were not about domination, power, or control. They were about choice. Lyra had chosen to sit with him. She had chosen to trust a human, even when her instincts screamed caution. Meanwhile, on the ship, Captain Thorne prepared for the next phase of exploration. Unaware that Eli had begun defying orders in subtle ways, hiding sensors, redirecting scans, and making small adjustments to prevent harm to the Vulpines. Eli understood that this choice might cost him his career, but he did not hesitate. Protecting Lyra and her people felt natural, inevitable even. As the first part of this story closes, Eli and Lyra sit together under the twin moons of Variant 4. The forest hums around them, alive with unseen life. Lyra's tail flicks slowly as she curls in his lap, pretending annoyance. "I'm not your pet," she mutters again, but Eli knows better. She has made a choice, and in that choice, a fragile, beautiful bond has begun, one that could change the fate of two species forever. Eli Grant had never expected that his quiet days among the Vulpines would turn into a race against time. After earning Lyra's trust and observing the forest in peace, he believed that patience and care were enough to keep her safe. But humans, eager for knowledge and prizes, often did not see the life in front of them. They only saw data and discoveries. One morning, while Eli worked on repairing a damaged energy scanner near the edge of the crystalline forest, he noticed movement above him. Drones hovered silently between the trees, scanning the landscape with soft, mechanical whirs. They emitted bright scanning lights that reflected off the crystals, making the forest sparkle unnaturally. Lyra froze beside him, her ears flattening against her head. "They're here," she whispered, a low hiss escaping her lips. Her eyes darted to Eli's face, searching for confirmation. Eli nodded slowly. "They're not just scanning the forest. They're tagging your people. They think you're valuable," he said, choosing his words carefully. "They don't understand that you are alive." Lyra's tail twitched furiously. "We have lived freely for centuries," she said, her voice trembling with anger. "They cannot take that from us." She turned and sprinted silently into the shadows of the forest. Weaving through the glowing moss and crystalline trunks like a whisper, Eli followed, careful not to make a sound. When they reached the clearing where Lyra's kin gathered, the scene was tense. Smaller Vulpines huddled together, their fur bristled in fear. Elders stood tall, their long tails flicking, ears pricked, eyes wide with caution. Lyra motioned for Eli to stay back, but he stepped forward anyway, raising his hands to show he meant no harm. "They think you are rare," Eli explained, speaking softly so only she could hear. "They plan to capture samples. They will not stop until they have what they want." A low growl escaped Lyra's throat. "Then they will learn what it means to corner a Vulpine," she said. Her voice carried authority. Despite her youth, her words commanded attention. The elders murmured among themselves, glances flicking between the human and the girl. Eli realized something important in that moment. Lyra was more than a curious child of her species. She was a protector. Her instincts, honed through generations, allowed her to read danger instantly. And yet, despite the instinct to flee, she had returned to warn him that evening. As the twin moons rose over the misty forest, Eli sat with Lyra near a bioluminescent pond. He cleaned a small wound he had gotten while climbing a crystal ridge earlier. Lyra watched, her tail flicking nervously. "Humans are strange," she muttered. "You risk yourself for others you barely know." Achilles smiled faintly. "Maybe I'm not like most humans," he said. "I know what it's like to be studied. And not understood. I can't let that happen to you." Her ears twitched and she turned away, pretending not to care. "I don't need your protection," she said firmly. "I can handle myself." He understood. Vulpines were proud, intelligent, and fiercely independent. The last thing they wanted was to feel like someone was controlling them. But as the distant hum of drone engines approached, Eli felt the weight of the moment. They had little time. Suddenly, a beam of light swept across the pond, and the sound of human voices echoed through the forest. "Containment teams, move in," a voice commanded. Panic rippled through the Vulpines. Younger ones darted into hiding. The elders hissed warnings. Lyra grabbed Eli's arm. "We must move now." They ran together through the forest, slipping between glowing moss and towering crystal trunks. Eli marveled at Lyra's agility and knowledge of the terrain. Every twist and turn, every hidden tunnel and rope-like vine, she knew it instinctively. Yet, as they neared the edge of a steep ridge, Eli's foot caught a loose rock. He stumbled and fell hard, scraping his arm and leg. Lyra stopped instantly. Her amber eyes widened with alarm. "Eli," she hissed, crouching beside him. "You cannot slow me down." "I'm fine," he said through gritted teeth. "Just a scratch." She ignored him, her small hands gently pressing against his arm to stop the bleeding. "No," she whispered. "You do not fall behind. You do not get hurt. Not while I am here." Eli looked at her, realizing something profound. She had defied her instincts to protect him, even as danger surrounded them. This was more than trust. It was loyalty, choice, and perhaps the beginnings of something stronger. By the time they reached a hidden cave entrance, the human teams were already combing the forest. Drones hovered at the ridges, scanning every shadow. Lyra led Eli inside where the air was cool and still. Smaller vulpines, hidden in the shadows, watched cautiously as he leaned against the cave wall, breathing heavily. "We must hide him," Lyra said to the elders. "He is not like the others. He is ours now." One elder, a tall vulpine with silver-tipped fur, nodded slowly. "Very well. We shall protect him as we protect our own." Eli felt a surge of gratitude. Humans often failed to see value beyond data or status. Yet here, in this alien forest, beings he barely knew were willing to risk themselves for him. He wanted to repay their trust, but he also understood the limits. He could not impose his help. He had to act with care. Night fell over Varenfor. The forest glowed under twin moons, casting long shadows across the crystalline trees. Eli sat with Lyra by the cave entrance, keeping watch while the vulpines prepared traps and signals to detect human movement. She curled beside him, her body tense, but seeking warmth. "I said I'm not your pet," she whispered again, flicking her tail irritably, but her head rested lightly on his shoulder. "I know," Eli murmured, "and I would never treat you like one." The two of them sat in silence, listening to the forest hum around them. Somewhere deep in the trees, distant footsteps echoed, signaling that human soldiers were not far behind. But for now, they had a moment of peace. The next morning, Lyra led Eli to a hidden grove where ancient vulpine relics were scattered crystal shards, shaped like stars, glowing softly. "This place is sacred," she said. "It shows our history, our strength, our freedom." Eli looked around amazed. The crystals seemed to pulse with life. "Your people, they are remarkable," he said. "I've never seen anything like this." Lyra's eyes flickered. "You must remember," she said, "humans often think they can take what they do not understand. We must not allow that." "Do you understand, Eli?" "I do," he said firmly, "and I will help you however I can." She studied him for a long moment. "Then you are different. Most humans only see what they can control." He smiled faintly. "Then I will not be like most humans." Later that day, as the human team approached the grove, Eli and Lyra worked together to mislead them. Using natural camouflage and clever distractions, they caused the humans to search in the wrong areas. Small holographic beacons and reflected light from crystals misdirected drones. Every success was small, yet it gave the vulpines time to organize their defenses as the sun set, painting the misty forest in golden and red hues. Lyra glanced at Eli. "You do not belong here," she said softly. "And yet, you stand beside us." "I belong wherever there is justice," Eli replied. "And right now, justice means keeping you and your people free." For a long moment, they sat in silence, the bond between them deepening. Lyra had protested, "I'm not your pet," but her actions said otherwise. She had chosen to risk herself for him, just as he had chosen to protect her. Their connection was fragile, but real and unspoken, understanding that crossed species, worlds, and expectations. The forest around them whispered secrets of the past, and as the first stars appeared in the alien sky, Eli realized something important. In a universe filled with fear and curiosity, trust and loyalty could bridge even the widest gaps. And in the shadows of Varenfor, a human and a Vulpine girl prepared for the challenges ahead, unaware of the trials yet to come. They were not just allies, they were partners, bound by choice and courage, standing together against forces that saw life as a commodity rather than a gift. As the night deepened, Lyra finally allowed herself to curl in Eli's lap, her head resting lightly against his chest. She muttered softly, almost to herself, "Just for now." "Don't tell anyone," Eli smiled, careful not to disturb the fragile peace. For the first time, he understood that some bonds could not be forced, they could only be chosen. And in that choice, hope flickered brightly, even under the alien moons of Varanfor. The twin moons of Varanfor hung low in the sky, casting long silver beams across the forest. Eli Grant, weary from days of evasion, leaned against a crystalline tree and watched Lyra patrol the perimeter of their hidden grove. The Vulpine girl moved with unmatched agility, her golden fur blending seamlessly with the glowing foliage. Yet even as she appeared confident, Eli sensed the weight of responsibility pressing on her young shoulders. She had risked everything for him, and now the human crew of the Aurora was closing in faster than ever. "They're coming," Lyra said softly, her ears flicking toward the distant hum of drone engines. "They will not stop until they have what they want." Eli rose, brushing dirt from his uniform. "Then we won't let them take you," he said firmly. "We'll protect your people and your home." She paused, amber eyes meeting his. "You don't understand. You're not just protecting us. You're part of this now. Once humans see you here, they will see us all as valuable." Lee nodded. He had considered that. The moment he stepped into the forest to warn and help the Vulpines, he had become more than an observer. He was now a participant, humans standing alongside an alien species in defense of their freedom by the time the sun dipped below the horizon. Painting the sky in streaks of crimson and violet, the humans had arrived at the edge of the forest in full force. Small patrol drones hovered overhead, their lights scanning the undergrowth. Footsteps and mechanical clicks echoed from the distant ridge. It was a tense moment, one that required precision, caution, courage. Lyra crouched beside Eli, whispering instructions. "We split up. I'll lead the patrol away. You help the young ones, and the elders reach safety. Move quickly, but stay hidden." Eli swallowed. "I can do that." He glanced around the cave-like grove where the younger Vulpines waited, their eyes wide with fear. "Follow me," he said, guiding them toward a concealed tunnel hidden behind thick, crystalline vines. As they moved, the sound of pursuit grew louder. A beam of light swept across the trees. Lyra darted ahead, zigzagging through the glowing forest and drawing attention. Her movements were precise, each step calculated to avoid traps and detection. She occasionally glanced back, ensuring Eli and the others were moving safely. The tunnel led to a hidden valley, a place few Vulpines had ever visited. Eli helped the younglings over jagged rocks and across small streams, using his strength when they struggled. He could feel the adrenaline pumping through his veins, every step carrying the weight of responsibility. The humans were not far behind, but the bond he had formed with Lyra strengthened his resolve. He could not fail. Meanwhile, Lyra engaged the patrol directly. She moved like a shadow, weaving through drones and sensors with agility that made the humans' equipment seem almost useless. She used clever distractions, reflecting light from the crystals, creating noises in the distance, and leading the patrol into dead ends. Every moment she bought was a moment for her people to reach safety. Hours passed. Eli and the Vulpines reached a grove of ancient trees with roots forming natural barriers. The elders and children huddled together, eyes wide and tails flicking nervously. Eli knelt beside them, giving calm instructions. "Stay here. Stay quiet. Help each other." From the shadows, Lyra returned briefly to check on him. "You're holding up," she whispered. Her tail brushed against his leg, a silent gesture of comfort and trust. "The humans are persistent. They'll be back." Eli shook his head. "We can handle them. We're not alone. Your people know this forest better than anyone, and I'll fight if I have to." She studied him for a moment, amber eyes reflecting moonlight. Then, almost imperceptibly, she curled lightly into his lap, Just for a moment, she whispered. Keep warm. Keep strong. Eli smiled faintly, stroking her fur gently. Her earlier protests of "I'm not your pet" echoed in his mind, but her actions spoke louder than words. Trust had been given, freely and without expectation. As night deepened, the humans regrouped. Captain Thorne himself arrived with additional drones and patrol units. They cannot hide forever, he said into his communicator. Containment is mandatory. No exceptions. Eli clenched his fists. The thought of his species treating the Vulpines as possessions made his stomach tighten. But he also knew brute force would not work. The forest, the Vulpines' knowledge, and their agility made direct confrontation dangerous. He had to find another way, one that relied on strategy, courage, and clever misdirection. Together, he and Lyra devised a plan. Using natural pathways, reflective crystals, and strategically placed holographic beacons, they created illusions of movement and misled the human drones. Lights flickered, shapes appeared where none existed, and the humans chased shadows. Each distraction allowed the Vulpines to move farther into hidden territory. The tension was unbearable. Every mechanical hum, every distant shout, raised adrenaline and fear alike. Yet amidst it all, Eli found comfort in Lyra's presence. She was not just a guide or ally. She had become a companion whose instincts and bravery complemented his own. Finally, the humans reached a dense section of the forest where the natural landscape and crystal formations created an almost impenetrable barrier. Their drones were trapped in loops, endlessly scanning areas that had already been vacated. Frustration grew among the human ranks, and even Captain Thorne hesitated. Eli knew the final step had come. He and Lyra led the elders and children to the sacred shrine hidden deep in the mountains, a place few humans could ever reach. The shrine's crystal formations emitted a faint, calming glow. The elders nodded at Eli, acknowledging his courage and leadership. Lyra's tail flicked in pride as she watched her people settle safely. From a ridge above, Captain Thorne's voice carried faintly. This is your last warning. Surrender now. Eli stepped forward, hands raised. If you harm them, you harm me, he shouted. His voice echoed through the valley. The humans froze. His resolve, his willingness to risk everything for another species, was clear. Even the soldiers could see he would not back down. The Vulpines stood behind him, silent but formidable. Their fur bristled, ears flattened in warning, and tails flicked with tension. It was a show of unity and strength that human sensors could detect but not fully comprehend. Hours passed. The standoff remained tense. Captain Thorne finally issued a decision. Withdraw. This is not worth a confrontation. Leave the planet. You have 1 hour. Relief washed over Eli and the Vulpines. No one had been harmed. Their bond, their courage, and their strategy had saved them. Lyra let out a soft sigh, settling fully into Eli's lap. Her earlier protests were gone, replaced with quiet trust and the comfort of shared triumph. You kept them away, Eli said softly, stroking her fur. We did it together. She flicked her tail playfully. Don't get used to this, she murmured. I'm not your pet. Eli laughed softly. I know, he replied, but you chose to sit with me. That's enough. For the first time, the forest was truly quiet. The drones had left, the human patrols had withdrawn, and the Vulpines were free to move safely once again. The twin moons reflected off the crystals, painting the forest in soft silver light. Eli and Lyra sat together, sharing warmth and quiet satisfaction in the days that followed. Eli helped the Vulpines restore what had been disturbed, repairing small environmental sensors, recalibrating energy flows, and reinforcing natural barriers. Lyra showed him secret pathways, hidden groves, and ancient relics that told the story of her people's history. One afternoon, as they rested under a massive crystalline tree, Lyra nudged his shoulder. You are strange human, she said, tail flicking lazily. You risked everything for beings you barely knew. And yet you stayed, Eli replied, smiling. You trusted me. Her ears twitched. I did not want to. But you earned it, she admitted softly. Not many humans would do what you did. Most would only take and leave. Eli looked at her eyes, reflecting the forest's glow. "Then we are different," he said. "We see each other not as prizes, but as beings worthy of trust and respect." A small breeze rustled the crystalline leaves. The forest hummed with life, calm and serene. Lyra leaned against him again, her head resting lightly on his chest. "Just for now," she whispered. "Don't tell anyone." Eli smiled, careful not to disturb her. "I won't," he promised. Some bonds are meant to be chosen, not announced. In the end, the humans left Vereen 4 with data and samples that were harmless. Unaware of the true story unfolding deep in the glowing forests, Eli and Lyra remained a human and a Vulpine girl, bound not by ownership, but by trust, courage, and choice. The forest was alive with possibility, and for the first time in generations, the Vulpines felt truly safe, not because of walls or weapons, but because of the bravery and friendship of an unlikely ally beneath the twin moons. As the forest shimmered with silver and gold, Eli whispered softly, "Thank you for trusting me." Lyra's eyes met his. "And thank you for keeping us free," she replied. Then, with a faint purr-like hum, she curled into his lap, claiming comfort on her own terms. Her protests of "I'm not your pet" were gone. In their place was a quiet acknowledgement of trust, choice, and the beginnings of a bond that could bridge worlds. The stars shone brightly overhead, reflecting off the crystal forest and the hearts of two species who had chosen to understand each other. And in that light, hope flourished, trust beyond worlds, a bond beyond words, and a story that would echo through the ages.